Hello, friends. Today's topic, two things: dissociation and self-harm. Some connections between the two. Dissociation, for me, for myself, when I think about it, I think about cognitive ability or condition in the moment where you're at. There can be times where time's flown by and I've been in some kind of daze for minutes, hours, and I was thinking about things, didn't really realize that there's 5 hours have gone by. Or sometimes I'll have, this is all apparent, this is through a cognitive type thing, where sometimes my brain is barely going. I'm thinking, I'm speaking different, I'm thinking different, and other times I can be sharp, clear. Thoughts, speech, everything's coming out. And like I could be sleeping and then wake up 2 hours later and think that I've slept the whole time that I would usually sleep, and then look at the clock and it's only been 2 hours. And I get frustrated with that because I think that I've been asleep. This disassociation is pretty deep. It might be different for you if you're watching this for your disassociation that you might have. This is generally with people that have mood swings. Generally, they're classified or called borderline personality. I wouldn't cut it off there. I'd say a lot of different people that are categorized in other psychology type things could still have bouts of disassociation, and also to consider it different than disassociation. You could say disassociation is when you're spaced out. You're in a room full of people and people are talking and you're not listening at all. This could be mixed with ADD. There's people who say, "Well, this person has ADD," or whatever, whatever you want to call it. If you are spacing out, or you're thinking about something else when other people are talking to you, or even when I'm reading text inside of a book, I seriously will space out, and I'll have read a whole paragraph or even a page or two and not even realize anything that I was reading at all. So I was two things in my mind at the same time. I'm thinking about something, and I'm also doing this thing as well. How you experience this and what you label that as, it could be those things. To me, the disassociation is a cognitive thing, where I'm 4 or 5 hours have gone by and I don't even really realize it. And I can think back on what I was doing, and it's not really coming to 5 hours of things. And I was doing things that whole time. So it's a lot of it is what I'm remembering, possibly, what I'm not remembering. Because I can have days where I haven't had a sip of alcohol at all. And it's what I've done in the day is similar to waking up the next day where you had drank a lot, and then you say, oh, what did I do? And you probably know what I'm talking about there. So I'm saying not a sip, and having somewhat of the same effect. Speaking of which. So however my moods are involved in this kind of has to do with self-harm. A lot of it. And triggers having to do with self-harm, and also too my spacing out or my dissociation. Because when I was in my grandmother's hospital room when she was in hospice and she was being pumped full of opiates to end her life, to stop her heart. Who knows how much longer she could have lived after that. I'm sitting in the chair next to her, and my mom was talking to me, my mother, and I was mumbling. I was talking very quiet, and I realized that I was talking very quiet and I was mumbling. I was spacing out. My brain was going through something. There's sometimes I could be triggered to lit up and real low and very angry, sexual. There's all those triggers there. I can also be triggered into this spacing out type thing, because to me that was a surreal moment, sitting there watching my grandmother pass away and watching, literally sitting there watching her. I was standing over her and I watched her last breath, and my family members were standing next to her, and they were two women, or in my mental picture here, and they were talking to each other, la, 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 yeah, this and that, yeah. And I'm sitting there looking at her, and then there's her last breath, and it was a surreal moment for me. And then I went and sat down, after everyone was crying and everything else. I wasn't really. I just went and sat down, and I was just mumbling to myself. And I don't remember, my brother came to the door. Hey, yeah, we're gonna go get something to eat. You wanna go get something to eat? No, man. No, there's no way I would have been able to put any food inside of my stomach at that moment, because I really, I love my grandma quite a bit. So, and she was one of the very few people that actually really loved me. So when she was gone, then a big piece of me was gone with her. I lost something that day that I won't get back. So the self-harm, any times that I've ever hurt myself, probably the first time that I really actually did something to myself, where I physically did something to myself, I was 12, and my family had moved away from where I was living before, where all my friends were at. And a girl I liked a lot dumped me on the phone. She was kind of mean about it. And I was going through I was looking at myself. Well, what's the matter with me? Why am I not good enough? I was going through that. And I sat down at my little desk that I had. I think I had some kind of little school desk in my room. I don't know what we ever did with that thing. I don't know why I had a school desk in there. And I was sitting there with the razor blade, and I just did it. I was in a trance. And I remember I had this weird feeling inside of me, a euphoric feeling, when I took the razor on my skin, and I started to bleed, and I didn't feel it. I felt it inside, I didn't feel it, the razor on my skin. And it was on my arms. And the euphoric feeling kept coming, and I was spacing out. I was in I was in a disassociation, in my opinion. It's really up to me to decide what if I was in a disassociation or not. It's really up to me. Someone could say to me, "Oh, I don't think that's what it was." Well, that's their opinion. Well, I'm saying I've experienced this, and that's how I will describe it, at least. And then you can say to yourself, "Yeah, I've gone through that myself, and at least I've experienced something along those, something close to that." And there's other times where I've actually, I've cut myself, and I've done things to myself that was also a moment in my day where I completely detached from myself and moved in a direction of self-harm with what I've done to myself, as far as taking in a bunch of alcohol real fast and smoking some MJ and all that real fast as a real young guy, and made myself real sick. And some things that I don't really want to talk about, and describe exactly what it was. Very poisonous things that I had done to myself. And then afterwards, and these were by myself too, later afterwards, coming out of it, then I was still in the flesh, and then it was as if I was coming out of this daze where I'm doing this to myself. These types of things I wouldn't do to myself 24/7. It wouldn't be at any moment where you could say, "Oh, I'm hungry, I'm going to have a ham sandwich." No, it's not. It's not it could be anything. It's a very specific moment where I've detached, and then I've done it, and then I come out of it, and then I've got to live with myself that I've done these things, and the pain that I have afterwards from doing this to myself. And that's part of the grief of this, is realizing and accepting. And how do I go about getting around that? How do I get around these trances where there's that self-harm? Well, at least as I aged and I went through the 20s, and I had my times during the 20s, actually punching myself in the face around people and by myself, going and doing certain things that were real strenuous to myself, lifting weights to the point of having my muscles burn, that's not healthy, and then feeling pain and stiffness and soreness and not eating anything for a couple of days after that, so I didn't heal up. Really beating the shit out of myself, whether it was consciously or subconsciously. I was always pushing my body in some kind of mood that I was having, and not something that I would always do, because there's other times where I'd say, "Oh no, I must rest. I must get myself back up," and then here I am. I'm whittled down to nothing, and very hateful feelings towards myself, or my self-esteem, whichever it is. Because people that love themselves completely don't do that to themselves. They don't cut themselves. They don't do any of that kind of stuff. So there is some kind of overwhelming thing to actually hurt yourself. And why? Why is that? The complexity of the mind, going deep inside of it. Well, if you think about moods and how they can be elevated or deflated. And certain parts of your brain are going to have the little parts where you're going to have pulses or urges, so they're going to have triggers. And so if you see a naked person that you're attracted to, then you're going to get an impulse. You're going to get, you're going to have an urge. It's going to be a sexual thing. If you are an aggressive person and you see blood, you might have an urge to hurt someone. Yes, if you're at a fighting thing, a UFC thing, you see them fighting, or a shooting game, yes, urge, yes, I like that. There's different things that we're more or less inside of our heads that we were born with, that we're always going to be. So if you think about how that's all twisted up inside of someone's brain, and how one day you might have sexual urges, and then the next day you don't have any, and then one day you have a lot of compassion and self-care for yourself, and the next day you're cutting yourself and you want to be non-existent anymore, or you've got to do this to yourself, to punish yourself, to feel something, whether or not it's anything. Because if there's no one around and I don't have any kind of feelings or anyone there to hold me, then I can get, possibly it might have something to do with, I can get feelings from other things. I can get a stimulation from other things that don't have anything to do with other people. So if I'm getting dumped by my little girlfriend when I was a kid, and I can get some kind of stimulation when I was alone, not really realizing it then, maybe realizing it now, then the urge still needs to be filled. The feeling of needing to have feeling still has to be filled right then and there. And if pain is the way to do it, then that's what I did. If that's how I can break it down, in my opinion, why I might have done that. Because I don't have any answers when I'm 12 why someone doesn't want anything to do with me anymore. And why they were cruel about it, too. She was pretty cruel about it. And I saw her at Walmart probably about 6 months ago. I'm pretty sure that was her. It's been a long time. Pretty sure it was her. I'll never forget the shape of her body and her face and everything. She was walking around me. She took off, and I didn't think anything or feel anything. I didn't want to talk to her. It was just nothing. Connection was completely gone. There's no sense in talking to her anymore. But I didn't really want to. At 12, it meant a lot to me, or at least at the time. Because when I was about 25, I had a girlfriend that I was with for a while, and we ended things on a not so loving basis, whatever. And that didn't feel good for a while. And what I did to myself after that, it was the same thing. Wait, am I not good enough? Am I not good enough? Why am I not good enough? Well, that's an abyss, if that's why you hurt yourself. So I'm talking to you and I'm talking to me, that if you hurt yourself from a feeling of not being good enough, or you need that feeling inside to be replaced by hurting yourself, then think about that before you hurt yourself the next time. Is the reason that they left you has a whole lot more to do than just you. And it's not necessarily you even at all. And yeah, even if it is you, you've got to remember that there's a whole lot of other humans out there that would love your companionship and love you for who you are. And that attachment to that very specific person is another harmful thing to do to yourself. To be so attached to anyone is a harmful thing to do to yourself. That is a masochistic thing to do, to put so much into one person and they be your savior, and without them you can't go on. Yeah, well, that's self-harm too. You're putting yourself you're lining yourself up for a dump, big dump. You got to remember that humans, if something's coming easy to them, it's something that they're usually going to have to get away from. So if you're sucking on someone for a relationship and you're their everything, and it's too easy to keep you around, then you're probably going to get the boot. You're probably going to go, which is ultra sad. Ultra sad. You got to remember the brain, you got to remember dopamine, and you got to remember there's got to be some climbing the mountain to keep what you have still, to really appreciate what it is that you have, instead of it's just someone coming around, yes, I love you so much, and they do things for you so easily. They get you hundreds of dollars worth of stuff for every single occasion, of Valentine's, your birthday, Christmas. You don't get them anything. They tell you that they love you every day, and that they would take 100 screwdriver freaking stabs to the stomach for you to be humorous. And you never do any of those things for them because you don't have to, because they keep coming around. They don't need you. It's a fulfillment thing. If someone was to hand me $10 million in my hand and say, here's 10 million. I said, no shit. Here's 10 million. All right, cool. I guarantee you in a couple of days I'd be right back to where I was at before I had that 10 million in my hand. You're only going to really look at that 10 million as if you're clawing your way to get that fucking culture status, so you can go buy things, be a buyer. I've seen self-harm. There's this, I don't know if I'll ever find that again online. There was a gal that was, I think she was in Europe. I think it might have been here in the U.S. She had cut herself so many times, yet she was deep, like 3 inches, 4 inches into her thighs on each of her cuts. Very extreme. To get into that, I wouldn't be able to, because as far as any kind of physical cutting or any of that kind of stuff, that's super, super, super extreme. And anorexia and all these kinds of things with the mood swings and all that, it is a self-harm. I've watched many videos on that, and it's, to me, my opinion is, it's that getting closer and closer to death that is a part of it. It's that 1 inch closer and closer and closer, and then pulling back, binging, whatever, and then getting closer and closer and closer. Because if you were to ask them, say, exactly why do you do this? Most people are going to tell you, I don't know. I don't know exactly why, and I don't know exactly how to stop. I don't know exactly, during this specific moment why I am binging, and why this moment I'm cutting myself out. During this moment I'm not going out with friends because I don't like my appearance, or I'm not skinny enough, or whatever. Well, a lot of that, if you dig deep in, it'll come to you that this is a self-harm. This is a self-hatred, and it is a removal of yourself. Because a part of the removing yourself from friendships and isolating yourself and all that kind of stuff, because you don't think that you're pretty enough, you are destroying yourself. You're harming your life, because you know all those that you however you're looking at it, whatever your turn on is, consciously or subconsciously, you're still going in a direction of self-harm. And I've had my weight down big time. I've had my weight down, and I was thinking to myself that I was getting ripped and getting muscular, and all I was doing was losing weight, muscle mass, and then some fat. If you're ever in any kind of extreme thing with your body, depending on your genes, how much your body fat your body's going to let go to muscle ratio, that's up to your genetics. So how it goes for me is I'll lose weight, and maybe I'm losing about 40% fat, and I'm losing about 50%, 60% of my muscle mass. And you also have to consider the volume that you're losing too, because you're getting dehydrated. So a lot of that's not so much muscle; it's a lot of it is volume is going down. Still, to lose that much weight and that much at that, and you can still pinch fat on your stomach. You can still pinch fat on your inner thighs. You're losing muscle, or I'm losing muscle. And then there's other people out there that have alpha beta receptors in their body and their fat, where they can hang on to muscle mass and they can drop body fat down to 5% body fat within 6 or 7 weeks, because they didn't have much subcutaneous fat to begin with. It's the fat that's underneath your skin, and your visceral fat that's inside of your stomach, your beer gut. That's really the only thing they're going against, is the fat in their gut and the fat inside of their muscles. And then once they've brought that down, then they have this lean, muscular look. And it's not because they were hardcore, it's because they have the ability to do this. And this is another, self-image does have a lot to do with this subject. Because if you are not cool with yourself, or understanding of your genes, then you might be kind of hard on yourself. Because the way society has it, magazines, movies, and TV and everything, is there's the idols, there's the image, and there are certain shapes and everything where people have this and that. And it's usually a unique thing that someone is born with. And then everyone to be as loved as Arnold Schwarzenegger or Kim Kardashian or whatever, these types of things, these people, they were born with that ability to be able to do those things with their body. So they stand out. And they still have to go through life too, though. They still have to go through feelings of not being good enough, even if that's the case. These people can still have the feeling of not being good enough, even being admired by so many people. There's an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he was talking about how he got out of competition, and one of the last competitions that he did, he felt very uncomfortable because he hadn't been on stage for a little bit, and he said everyone was looking at him and it made him feel very uncomfortable. So he still has to deal with his own brain. and whatever things that he has to go through. So if you think that your body needs to be a certain way, then you've got to understand ability and capability. So if you're hurting yourself for that, I say look at ways that you can accentuate your body. Think of ways that you can accentuate your life, so that way you're not that person that sends 100 kisses texts every day and you get maybe 2 kisses from your boyfriend or girlfriend a week. They've got to be sending you a whole lot of kisses too. And to be able to find someone where you can have that, it might have a lot to do with how you can get on in your own skin and not harming yourself. I might have gone all over the place on this. I think every single thing I talked about has to do with self-harm. Because self-harming is much more than taking a razor blade to your skin. There's self-harm inside of your head. There's self-harm in how you go about your day and how you react to those times where you have that dissociation, where you're in that trance and you're thinking strangely, and you've got maybe a split second inside of your head where you can have reason or rationality. And you first of all can know it might be a good thing to not have razor blades. It might be a good thing to have less mirrors if you're so concerned. It might be good to put a couple of hours into the week where you do things for yourself. Whatever it may be. Maybe getting your nails done, getting your hairs done, getting a massage, doing this, doing that. Things where you're caring for yourself. Exercising, taking care of yourself, without thinking to yourself that you're going to be a certain person. You're just doing something for yourself instead of doing something to harm yourself or giving yourself away to someone else, where all they're doing is just sucking your blood. And then they'll spit you out, and then you'll go through these things that I've talked about. Why am I not good enough? Then there's the self-harm, usually. So I would say that most of the self-harm stuff is going to come from being dumped or rejected, because rejections are painful and can be painful. And the more rejections you go through, the more callous skin you have, the more calluses you have inside of your mind. You're scarred so much by so many rejections that there's less impact, on and on and on. And maybe even less desire to have someone in your life. And all it takes is one person to reject you, especially when you've given them all of your heart, to completely distinguish what you have inside. All it takes is one person. So if you find yourself in that situation, as we sit right now, and you're watching this video and you're saying, that's me, consider those things. And do what you need to do for you in your own way. Not how I'm saying. I'm not saying go dump them or think that they're the opposition or any of that type of stuff. Just consider what I'm saying. And consider how you can do things for yourself, though. If you're a people pleaser or whatever, once you start doing some things for yourself and you edge that way, a little bit away from the other person, they'll probably want you more. Probably. Refer back to what I was mentioning about the dopamine and how there has to be some kind of clawing at what you want for it to be a reward type situation inside of your mind. If you're thinking about self-harm in the way of ending yourself, I say don't do it, of course. Reach out to me. I will talk to you in private. And it's mostly just a hump. A real dark time in your life, it's a hump. And if you are going to do it, then reach out. Reach out to someone that you love. Reach out to a family member that you can talk to, and they will usually support you in a loving way, to let you know that they love you. And it might even be kind of shocking to them, and they might even come across a little weird on it. Still, realize that they're listening and they care about you. And you can always message me privately, and I'll lend an ear. I'll lend a message of support to let you know that we get over these humps as we are, in whatever kind of mood we are. And tomorrow the sunshine will come out, and you might be you playing volleyball with some friends, or next summer you'll be playing volleyball with friends, or you'll be doing something fun, and you can look back on the dark times and you can identify that is depression, why you are having those thoughts of ultimately harming yourself to that point. And again, I say don't do it. Just don't do it. And I say don't harm yourself at all with razors or hitting yourself or putting yourself in vulnerable relationships, even with family, if that's the case. If you're, for example, if you're a homosexual and you have family who shuns you, will still have you around a little bit, so that way something's going on. You're still around. You're not really loved by them. They treat you like crap. Well, that's a harmful relationship. And it's sad. It's sad, because that's your family. Still, it's when you go back and you're with yourself, do you feel better about yourself being around them? It doesn't matter who it is. It's any human. Some humans you got to get away from. So that way you can love yourself a little more. Care for yourself a little more. And then when you've cared for yourself and you love yourself, the people that really will reciprocate your love can benefit from your love that you can give them. So you got to keep that in mind too. So if you can keep yourself rocking and rolling, then those people that you've maybe haven't even met yet, or the little ones that you take care of, or someone that needs you, then you can really give them love when you can love yourself, when you can take care of yourself and not hurt yourself. So I do not know how many people out there would really want to comment on these types of things publicly. It's okay. I don't even know if there's a private messaging on here anymore. I don't know. We can always temporarily share addresses or whatever, email addresses, and then delete them right away once we've written it down or whatever. And I can correspond with you and you can talk about these things wherever you're at. I'm in the U.S. I'm in Denver. So you can be anywhere. You can be in Pakistan. You could be anywhere. If you can write in English, I'll talk with you about any of this kind of stuff. No, I'm not a doctor. Just a civilian man. As far as that goes. So, happy day. if you may, take care, peace and love, care for yourself. Good night.